I was on opioids prescribed by the VA and the United States Army for over a decade. I'd participated in the medicinal program at Walter Reed, 90 days, and I just took a gel cap twice a day. And during that time period, we went cold turkey off of opioids, and we were on massive quantities at the time. There was very little withdrawal, only in the initial few days, and it was more like nicotine withdrawal than I would equate to withdrawal from that legal heroin. And we felt fantastic. Our energy levels improved, our cognitive abilities improved, pain was decreased, everything was fantastic. 90 days afterwards, they said, thank you so much for participating, but it was a trial study and it's not legal. Now that marijuana is legal, I've gone completely onto the medicinal marijuana. I have eliminated over 50% of the medications I take, most of which were medications I was taking to compensate for side effects of the medications I was taking. It's helped with anti-inflammation, pain relief, cognitive abilities, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, spinal cord pain, ankylosing spondylitis, other rheumatoid arthritis issues. And then, in addition to all that, which I wasn't expecting, it's helped with my acid reflux and my ulcerative colitis.
When I left the military service in 2017, they had me on medications for a variety of different things, from PTSD to neuropathy. I was over-medicated, and I had a small child at the time. She was a toddler, and I couldn't function. So I decided to start medicating with cannabis, which at the time was illegal. But it created a better quality of life for me. You know, everybody says it's a gateway drug. Yeah, it is. It is. It's a gateway to a better life. I got my life back by using cannabis. I could function. I was more alert and there for my daughter. With some of the other medications they had me on, and a lot of them were antidepressants, some of the side effects are that they cause suicidal ideations or suicidal tendencies. And I knew I couldn't keep going that route because I kept having to change medications because of that just overwhelming feeling of like, why am I here? What's the point? I'm in pain constantly. I'm down. I'm depressed. Once I got off those medications and started medicating with cannabis, I was there. I was present again. I could be there for my child. I could function. I could get up and do the daily normal activities that I needed to do, clean my house, take care of my kid. I wasn't able to do that before.
I can get up in the morning, and it usually takes a couple hours before I start noticing pain setting in, and I do edibles for the most part, and I make my own, and brownie in the morning, and within a couple hours I can get up and get out and go do things and not focus on how much it's hurting. I can actually go out if I want to help my wife in the yard, or if I want to, we want to travel, go places and do things. I'm enjoying myself and not thinking about, well, I wish I was at home and laying down.
You know, Brent and I, after having a bookstore here for a long time, he encouraged me to fly a little bit and look at business opportunities and perspectives from outside of the area. So I went to Rockville, Maryland, and I started spending some time in his innovation center there. And soon after that, Brent and I met John Powers, who's CEO through their common business, and which was dealing with CBD, and we got involved in that and got involved in growing hemp. Because of the common thread of now John Powers and Brent, there was another Wesleyan graduate that Brent and I had engaged with that told me about Jason Queen, and he said, you really need to introduce yourself to Jason, let him know some of the things that you're doing. And little did I know that Jason, who had a security business at the time, would take the ball and run with it like he had.
I grew up across from the Armory. I played basketball in that Armory. I drove an M1 tank in that Armory. I shot guns in that Armory, and hung out and played everything from horseshoes to touch football around that Armory as a kid growing up, and actually watched it being built in the mid-'60s. I had toured some very similar facilities, and actually the largest and most profitable one in Colorado, a group called Native Roots, and they were basically in a very similar building. So I just said, well, I have that building sitting in my hometown, why not? And so that's kind of how it all began, and I came back and got with this group and said, I think we have the possibility, and here's a perfect building. And obviously my relationship with economic development in Upshur County and Rob Hinton, we were able to cut a very reasonable deal to get that building.
I met the team that makes up Armory Pharmaceuticals, at least the foundational team, about 7 years ago in Baltimore. And they were with a company called RX Remedies, and they were focused on CBD and hemp production and CBD production. At that time, I was the economic development director for the county, and I saw that as an opportunity to recruit, at that time, a CBD manufacturer to West Virginia, specifically in Upshur County. We had this big building that we had taken over, the old Armory, 3-foot concrete walls. It's just a monster of a building, and we had very limited opportunities for use for that building. It was a very hard building to market. And ironically, there's two things that would have worked well there. One is a data center, which population doesn't suit itself for a data center here. And the other seemed to be along the lines of hemp and CBD manufacturing. Ideally, the perfect situation was a controlled grow environment for medical cannabis. And so John and team with RX Remedies formed a new company, and they were going to go into and make investments in the medical cannabis field. What makes this company a real asset, not only for Buckhannon, but also for the state of West Virginia, is that their expertise and the science and the knowledge that they have as a team to go down the path when it's available to create FDA-approved drugs. That is such an advantage for a state like West Virginia, who wants to create an economy based on knowledge-based businesses.
When the Armory was built here in Buckhannon, it was built through a bond from the people. The people paid into the bond, built the Armory, and that's the way it was in all the armories that were built back in the 60s. It was built in 62. So that's really a people's building. Now, it was built originally for an armored regiment, and that building was built to support an M48 tank on the drill floor, okay, and to take a mortar hit on the roof. The reason the community wanted to build it was because not only they would have a military presence, but they got to use it as a community building. Bingo, Shriners, weddings, and craft shows. Used to have the craft show there. The one that they have at the middle school now, they had there. It was a big event. I mean, it was a traditional thing. Strawberry Festival, they had something in there for the Strawberry Festival. The building's just a structure, but the community is what makes any organization. And I will tell you right now, this community is very supportive of anything that promotes the well-being of the people in this county.
I've been operating a cannabis facility in DC for the last 10 years, and now in West Virginia. My responsibilities here are everything from design through construction management, oversight, and then operations and all financial aspects of the business, making sure that we're going to be profitable and also making sure that we're putting out a high quality premium product to the patients of West Virginia. Yeah, so after working in DC for 10 years and figuring out all the ways to do it wrong, and then having to rebuild rooms 3 times over to get it right. I was able to learn from all those experiences and put all the best pieces of the puzzle together to come up with this design. And this building has been in this town for a long time. There was a lot of jobs that were created locally for this building, and bringing it back to life and its former glory it's been an exciting project to work on. And you know, we're not a bunch of out-of-towners who are going to operate this facility. We're going to combine our skill sets from what we've learned over the years in different states, and then train people here and provide the jobs locally, so that the Armory can once again be a major part of the town.
Basically, we started at an old Armory building. Demo was a long process. Everything's concrete, lots of rebar. It's very well built. You know, they used to pull tanks in here, actually right about where I'm standing right now. It's a different breed of concrete, you know what I mean? It's hard to jackhammer through. So we had a lot of work for all the plumbing, all that stuff, and then got all the underground out of the way, and we started putting it back, built a structure inside of this structure. This is it. The steel for this structure is on the inside of the wall panels. The amount of HVAC and power, and it was just a different job. So everything went as smooth as it possibly could with a great bunch of guys.
Welcome to Armory Pharmaceuticals. This is our grow and process facility here in Buckhannon, West Virginia. Here we have our security operations center, which nobody's allowed to see in. We have state-of-the-art security systems, and everything in there is proprietary. That's our brain center for the whole operation. This is our mother room. This room is where our mother plants would be, female mothers. This is where we would take cuttings off of those plants, start new plants off of those cuttings. Our racking system is pretty neat. Basically, we maximize the square footage in this room. We're about to enter the water room, where all of our water and nutrients that feed all of our plants, all of it's run out of this brain center. This is our isolation vault. This is where any plants that were showing any signs of anything out of the ordinary, if we wanted to isolate them. Here we're going to enter one of our vegetation rooms. We take the cuttings off the mother plants, start new plants out of those cuttings. Once they're started, they'll be moved into the vegetation room to start the second phase of growth. The reason you see 2 layers of racking here is because the plants are in a smaller growth stage, so we can fit more in a smaller space by using 2 tiers. So here we are in one of our flowering rooms. You can see everything is clean, crisp, and new. Now we're going to enter one of our 2 drying rooms. So once the plants are harvested, they'll be brought into the drying room. There's an exact parameter of days down to the hour how long a plant takes to dry. This room is our trim and packaging room, where once the plants are dried, we trim the flower and process all of the cannabis into final product. This is one of our 2 vaults where all of the packaged product, when everything is complete, will come to be in secured storage. This is our mechanical room where all the power comes into the building. This is our laboratory where all of our chemists, scientists, and doctors will do their work doing research and development, extracting oils and things from the plants.
So in our facility, we'll start off with seeds. We'll grow those seeds into full plants. We'll test those out, see which ones are the best. We'll keep those for our mother plants. And then from the mother plants, we'll take clones of those, which we will take into clones. We'll take those into the clone room. We'll grow those out for a short amount of time. And then those plants will transition into our vegetation room, which those will grow until our adequate size. And then from those vegetation plants that we'll be growing, we'll also take those into the flower room that I'm in right now. Those plants will continue growing until the end of their cycle. Once the plants have reached their full maturity, we'll harvest these plants, and then they will go into our drying room. And then from the drying room, they will go into full production after that for our processing.
Armory Pharmaceutical decided very early on that it was going to spend close to $10 million to build a facility in Buckhannon, West Virginia. The reason we did that, when we could have done it for $1.5 million, maybe $2 million, you can grow a plant under controlled levels under today's regulations at the lower number. In order to make a drug or make anything assembling that, the levels of control you have to have are so much higher. The levels of control we need are to be able to look at any plant in any room with the exact moisture and humidity and temperatures and lights, and every single thing in those control systems has to be done by a cell phone. We can now control our facility down to the most minute corner of a room and know exactly what's going on. That's a pharmaceutical level of control versus just a more horticultural level or agricultural level of control. So we built the building 5 times the cost of what anybody else would do to make a state-of-the-art facility that I'd put up against anybody's in the country right now for the control levels that are in there, on the presumption that we will be a regulated industry down the road, and we will need these levels of control to prove that we're making the products at a more pharmaceutical level than today's marijuana level. To make a pharmaceutical grade product is to think just a little bit differently than the average person who's growing a medical marijuana plant today. So today we grow a plant, we tag a plant, we trim the buds and the leaves where all the compounds are, and then we either we'll put that into something that can be inhaled or ingested. So that's today's method. What we need to do is we need to then take that a step further. We need to take that plant, that product, we need to take the ingredients out of it, and now we need to put it into either a tablet, a tincture, an injectable, an inhalable. These are all the methods of application that we have for today's pharmaceutical products. It's a little bit different than saying here is a piece of chocolate with marijuana in it, as to here is a tablet with exactly 10 milligrams that you're going to put under your tongue that dissolves for this particular intended purpose. So the same ingredient, just looking at it a different way and moving along the spectrum of from today's market to tomorrow's pharmaceutical market. Why don't we go take a look at our lab here? This is what we're going to replicate in West Virginia. And you'll get to see all these botanical medicines that we're talking about, some of the terpenes, some of the others that we're going to be mixing and matching to make these medicines. So welcome to the lab. This is what we were talking about before. These are all the botanical compounds that we were discussing previously. So by mixing and matching these botanicals, for example, glutathione, which has a tremendous benefit to immune system, or theanine, which can be used for sleep, or glucosamine, which is a precursor to the amino acids that we need to repair tendons and ligaments in our bodies. By mixing and matching these with some of the terpenes and some of these others that we have here, we're able to compound drugs that can be used for very specific purposes. This is the lab that we're going to replicate in West Virginia. In this room, we will mix and match all of the chemicals that are going to be going into these tincture bottles. That creates a batch that we're going to make. That then liquid is pumped through the peristaltic pumps in a clean environment into these bottles. The caps are then applied. They come down the filling line, are then labeled. From the labeling, they go to the collection table, and from the collection table into these trays where they can then be brought out of the clean environment, fully manufactured and packaged, and put into boxes and ready for distribution. We can create botanically based medicine using today's conventional methods of testing them. That's what Armory Pharmaceutical exists to do, and we're doing it in Buckhannon, West Virginia.